Welcome to Heartfelt Awakening Radio. I am your host, Denny Van. I help you train your brain to choose wellness. So, if you're just now listening to our show, welcome. If you've been listening for a while, welcome back. I love to combine awareness training with the power of your nervous system, the interstitial system, which has just recently, as 2018, been classified as an organ, and neurolinguistic programming, otherwise known as NLP, with the techniques that lead to dehypnosis. So in this episode is all about awareness training, specifically about your nervous system or our nervous system, how it naturally responds to trauma. So we're going to talk about 4 ways the body responds to trauma. And these are hormonal and neurological responses that you should be aware of. So when you feel those responses kicking in, there are tools and techniques that you can use to put out the fire. So you're no longer reacting, but instead responding. And so the easiest way to remember these 4 ways is the 4 F's. So we're going to go through each one of them, but the 4 F's are, you might know about fight and flight, right? So those are the ones we hear the most often about, fight and flight. So those are the first 2 F's, but you might not know about freeze and fawn. Those we're going to get into detail. And fawn, if you're not familiar with that, you may be familiar with the book Reality Transurfing, Steps 1 through 5 by Vadim Zeland. There's a chapter in the book where he talks about frailing. And this is natural. Our frail is the essence, our personality of who we are. And in the right environment, our frail flourishes. But in a traumatic environment, we begin to fawn. And so it's a traumatized frail is what's happening. So we're going to get into details. So get ready. And first, I want to talk about the fight and flight. So we're either hitting it head on, whatever this trauma is, we're fighting it, or we're running away from it. So many of us know about this part. But many of us might not know that the adrenaline and cortisol that is released in the body when we're in any of these trauma states, whether we are in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, there's hormones and neurotransmitters that are released in the body. And when they're released in the body, they cause all kinds of havoc. And one of them is not thinking clearly. Another one is inflammation and not having or moving from the energy you did before. So you're in a different type of energy when you're in this type of body nervous system response. So we know about fight and flight. So flight, some of the symptoms or some of the behaviors, and these are normal human behaviors, and actually they're also behaviors in other species. So this is something that has been observed not only in humans, but other species as well when trauma is experienced. So the nervous system has a way to respond, and it usually responds the way that you through survival of that trauma. It depends on how you got through the original trauma and survived it. So many of us might flight. We might go to just run away from it. And these trauma responses, it doesn't matter if it's physical response, emotional response, mental response, physical response to trauma. All of them are within the nervous system. So this is how your nervous system really naturally responds. So there's nothing wrong with you, just awareness training so that you open up other choices. So flight, we all tend to flight, but what does flight look like? What do people do or other beings do when they're in flight mode? Okay, so we obviously know about running away from the tiger. That's one example of flight mode. But we don't run away from tigers anymore, right? So in our society, how does flight behave when the nervous system chooses to flight? One way is through any kind of uh, alcoholic or any kind of ick behavior, workaholic, alcoholic, potaholic, cigaretteaholic, whatever aholic behavior that transpires from the trauma. This is the response to the trauma as a way of being in flight. So any kind of aholic behavior, potaholic, sexaholic, screenaholic, whether that's TV, Netflixing, binging, or being on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, for 2 or 3 hours, and next thing you know, your whole day has passed by. That's an aholic. So think about what aholic behavior that you might be flighting from, right? So this is your nervous system responding. So now that you're aware of it, this is key. You create space between actually reacting to instead now maybe even responding. So now your body's going into flight mode. What can you do instead? And we have the tools for that. That's our specialty. So next category is fight. Okay, so you're either going to stand there and you're going to look the tiger in the eye and you're going to fight it out to the death, right? But we're not fighting any tigers today. But instead, what does that look like in our nervous system today? How does that fight behavior manifest itself? And usually this is learned behavior. So some of the things we might do is an angry outburst, or becoming the bully, or wanting to control. So now we know that flight, we might go into aholic mode. Other things we might do is overthink, mind tsunamis. The mind doesn't shut off. You're really in flight mode. You might have a panic or anxiety attack, or you might actually exhibit behaviors of OCD. You might have difficulty sitting still. You might manifest behaviors of perfectionist. This is all flight mode. So you're doing something else other than what you're faced with, what is triggering your trauma responses. So if you're an older person, your trauma responses probably happened a while ago. And we might have these behaviors that surface, and these behaviors can manifest in flight mode as an alcoholic, workaholic, overthinker, holding on to everything, creating panic, anxiety, OCD behaviors, or in flight mode. That was all flight mode. Or in fight mode, angry outbursts. You just get angry. No matter what it is, something triggers you, you become angry, you become the bully. Learned narcissistic behavior comes out. It doesn't mean you are a narcissist. It means there's unconscious learned behavior coming to the surface. So you're in fight mode when that narcissistic behavior comes out. So now you're in fight mode, and listen to your body, how that behavior comes out. This is awareness training. Explosive behavior. You know, you can see the nicest person on the planet, and all of a sudden they're just explosive in their behavior. And you just think, oh my gosh, I've known that person for as my neighbor for all these years. I had no idea. So these are how these symptoms manifest themselves in flight or fight. Now, the two that you might not be aware of are freeze and fawn. So it's in our nervous system to freeze, right? So all mammals, like rabbits usually run, but other mammals might completely freeze, like a baby deer, any kind of baby animal, it will automatically freeze. So the tiger kind of walks away because, you know, there's no chase. So this is a natural in our reptilian brain nervous system response to freeze. But other things or other ways this behavior can manifest because, we're not freezing from a bear or making ourselves really big and just freezing. We're not doing we're not doing those types of things. But this can manifest in behaviors such as difficulty making decisions. Have you ever just froze and you just couldn't make a decision and you had to go right or left and you didn't know what to do, so you just froze? And you're unable to make a decision, that feeling of being stuck. You dissociate, you isolate, and then you numb it by going into flight mode by maybe potaholic, alcoholic, pornaholic, whatever holic that you have a tendency to go toward. And we all go toward some kind of a holic in that mode. That's a behavior that manifests itself in that mode. And then fawning. Fawn is the mode. Fawning is the verb. And fawning is, people pleasing. You don't have any kind of identity, so you're going to go under the wing of someone, please them, learn everything you can from them. And we talked a little bit in the beginning about the book Reality Transurfing Steps 1 through 5 by Vadine Zeeland. There's a chapter in there where it talks about frailing. And again, this is natural. This is our essence. This is what has our natural personality. So if we're naturally in an environment where you can express yourself without being denied or pushed down or beaten, whatever, without it being traumatized, your frail is able to express itself. This is a natural thing. But when a frail is traumatized, when your essence is traumatized and it changes your personality, it changes your nervous system output, this fawning becomes toxic. So you become a people pleaser. You don't have any identity. You don't know who you are. You're looking outside yourself for someone to tell you what to eat, when to eat, who to hang around with, who to like, who to believe. So these are all types of fawning types of behavior under the category of freeze and fawn. So these 4 areas where the body responds to trauma, again, are natural. These are natural. It's natural to go into fight mode and become the bully. You're protecting something. You're going into reaction mode. It's in your nervous system. But if you can create just a little bit of awareness, and we do this by making the subjective objective. So for example, I am an alcoholic. This is very subjective because somebody else who may drink alcohol, they might not call themselves an alcoholic. So it's very subjective. So what do you mean by you are an alcoholic? You have to completely abstain from it, because I can have a drink every now and then. So it really is your perspective and where you are within these trauma responses of the nervous system. So if you discover that you're now people pleasing, I am a people pleaser, this is subjective. So how do we make the subjective objective? So if somebody is very angry, I am angry. Well, how angry are you? Because that's subjective. We make the subjective objective by using the pain scale. Hospitals use this, so it's scientific. You can have a beginning and an end, and you can compare, track everything by making it objective and using the pain scale. So when you say, I am angry, you're in fight mode. How angry are you? I'm a 10. You just made the subjective objective, and just by doing that one tiny thing, just by doing that, you are now, instead of in reaction mode, you are now in responding mode. Just that one little hack that can begin to start reprogramming your nervous system, because we have to get out of reaction mode, don't we? Because so many of us are just projectile vomiting on each other, right? We're in reaction mode. People getting angry that they're not getting the receipt fast enough. I mean, we are in fight mode. And if we can recognize when someone is in fight mode and becomes the bully toward me, I see behind the behavior. I don't even look at the behavior, because if I look at the behavior, my behavior is going to want to come out and become a bully, right? Or I'm going to want to freeze, or I'm going to want to run away, or I'm going to want to try and please that person, right? So instead, I don't even look at the behavior, and I might say, hey, you having a bad day? And it might kind of jump them out, or it might make them angrier. I don't know. But this is how we are all playing our roles in the theater. So you get to decide now whether you're feeding it fire by reacting to it, or removing the fire and responding. And so on a neurological level, you receive all the energy that you would have wasted by giving it to it and reacting. You receive that energy by responding. And we talk about ways in our workshops and stuff on techniques that you can do to release that within your nervous system. And we use neurokinesis, and there are so many ways, but we get very specific on which one of these are best to use neurokinesis on. So with that, I want to hear from you. Where do you find yourself when you're triggered? Do you run away? Are you in flight? Do you put your arms up and bully the person, or try and take control of the person? Or do you have an angry outburst? You know, it really depends on our triggers, doesn't it? Some might cause us to become people pleasers, or have absolutely no boundaries at all, or feeling overwhelmed and codependent. That's fawning behavior. And we all have a tendency to freeze, to feel stuck, unable to make a decision, maybe even disassociate and isolate. So we all have these tendencies. So I want to hear from you. What's going on with you? I want to hear what you loved, and I want to hear what you would love more of. And if you'd like to know about our 6-week program, we're going to have some information in there, and it goes over this. And not only that, hacks to your nervous system on how to reprogram the unconscious. And I'll tell you a secret. We can't do it from the conscious or unconscious, because, you know, you can't trick, coerce, fool, bribe the unconscious. So we have to do it from another perspective that you are. And we teach you this, and within 6 weeks, total transformation. So if you're interested in that, check out the links in the comment. And in the meantime, keep being amazing.